welcome back to the Mysidian Legend, the only FFTCG podcast that features David and myself. And if you haven't listened before, each week we're going to cover our locals experience, except for when we don't, which is going to be this week. So normally we would talk about our deck lists and how our play went and how we can improve. Unfortunately, neither of us were able to make it to locals this week. So what we're really going to do this week is talk about Worlds.
Yeah, for the fourth week in a row, neither of us makes locals.
Yeah, well, I have a very good reason. I am a high-level wrestling coach, and by high level, I mean high school.
And by high level, he means Div 2.
Yes.
High school?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's not even like divisions in wrestling in Canadian high schools, so it's all one dying sport. Okay, so before we get started, I always got to mention that we've got a deal from Cards of Ivalice for all of your singles, and you can use the promo code PORUMPALUM10 for your purchase. And when you do that, it shows that you support the Mysidia posts, and it will give you a discount on your order. So it's not a bad way to go. So that code is PORUMPALUM10. So buy now, do it, please.
Wow, that sounds really good on your new microphone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got this great setup, and I'm pretty chuffed and cheesed about it. I'm very happy.
Chuffed and cheesed.
Yeah.
Make more pee noises.
Yeah, exactly. I got my pop filter. Okay, so the main thing we're going to do today is talk about Worlds, and if we have some time, then maybe we'll talk more about our testing, but I mean, at some point here we have to go to locals and actually give you some results. Okay, so David, have you been watching the stream on day one?
I watched it all, and I'm watching it right now.
Yeah, so we're currently, it's Sunday morning, and the draft portion of day 2 is happening, and now I actually haven't watched very much of the Worlds at all because of my busy schedule, and I'm going to watch it all on demand later and then do some content on it. But so Dave, why don't you give us a kind of a quick overview of how day 1 was?
Everybody's playing a Windwater deck, pretty much everybody, so absolutely nothing has changed in the meta from that, and it's the same staple of cards. Like, you got the YRP. Funny enough, 5CP Una is making a comeback at the moment, so I love being wrong. Feels great. What I did find surprising is that with the banning of the old Riku, is that everyone obviously is playing the activate your forwards, but they're not playing 3 ofs for that. They're only playing 2 ofs, so that's kind of interesting. But I'm not seeing a lot of Opus 10 really impacting those decks much.
Okay, because I actually did a little bit of a look on some of the deck lists. I have all the deck lists here. And some of the there's some new like Opus 10 tech choices that we're seeing in Windwater. Now, they're not changing the core function of the deck. Like you said, it's still the same powerhouse that it's always been, but we have some interesting choices. For example, Citra. Well, Citra is actually becoming a core part of the deck because it recurs Valfors indefinitely. But we also have things like the pre-release promo Tidus that is used to bounce your own pain back to your hand and then play it again for super value. We're seeing stuff like the new Pinello, which was my sneaky favorite card of Opus 10, to top up your Valfor and Fina AoEs to make sure you wipe your opponent's board. And we're also seeing things like the Bart's backup, and I think there's been a few other cards that are kind of like making their way in. Of course, Starter Vaughn in some decks. So
yeah, we're seeing it, but it's not making the splash that, say, like Diabolos did. Like, Diabolos changed the game for Windwater. Like, you knew it was going in. It was going to change everything for that deck. Whereas this is just kind of, all right, this is cool. I like the way you're playing with it, but...
Yeah, I think Citra will end up having a Diabolos-like effect. I mean, because it brings back Diabolos. But the other cards, I think, are all stuff that's like tech, and they're not too game-changing.
That's the thing, is they're techy. They're not, game-changing. They're not making the deck over-the-top powerful. It's just kind of keeping that level of dominance that Windwater's had.
Okay, and did you say you saw 5CP Unit in the stream?
Yeah, it did.
Nice. Then it was working?
It was. Yeah. It did its job.
What do you even balance with that?
I can't remember exactly because I was watching it at like 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah, fair.
But it was basically he would just get it down, and I can't remember exactly what was bounced, but I think they would end up bouncing maybe their own. No, I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Everyone
hey,
listening.
that's totally fine. I haven't watched anything, and I'm making you do all the heavy lifting.
Super.
So I'll quickly. I've got the top 16 here, so I'll quickly congratulate those guys. So Alex Hancock's our world champion from last year was undefeated at the end of the day one Swiss, and that's pretty neat because I know that he didn't go to a ton of events, but he still does lots of testing and everything, and he's hasn't even missed a beat. He's the best player there by these standings. And then right behind him is Taiki Haragai, which is the Japanese player that is probably most recognizable as a name. And then JFB behind that, Ruben Gutierrez, Christopher Matiski, Colin Rupert, there's our first NA, Emmanuel Padilla, another NA player. We have Yabuichi, which is a Japanese player, Grand Jason from Australia, Robert Phillips, Masayuki Yamada, Nicholas Leroy, who I think that was the guy that was in the Ignis cosplay, which is really cool, Andrea DeLuca, Kyle Peters, and Matt Okimoto, and then 16th place, Jamie Faulkner. So congrats to all of those guys for making day 2 of Worlds, and congrats to everybody else that qualified for Worlds and fought a really hard day 1. I can't imagine how difficult it would be to go to Worlds and you have no idea exactly what people are going to be playing because it's a brand new set, and you're also playing against the best players in the entire world. So that's pretty insane.
Yeah, we know they're in the same boat as you, that there's been limited testing of Opus 10 between the set release and now. So that's what kind of is being reflected in the deck list, that everyone's playing the same kind of wind water. And then maybe their B deck has more of an Opus 10 deck feel to it, but one deck there is their guaranteed powerhouse wind water and that they're comfortable, and then the next deck is something a little more fun.
Yeah, so I actually have some stats here. So of the 16 players that we got deck lists for, the top 16, there's 32 decks to each. And so 12 of the top 16 played Windwater. So that's almost all of them, right? That's a huge chunk. Then 7 were playing World of Final Fantasy decks as their second choice. 6 of them were playing Rampier decks as their second choice. And then we had 2 people playing Earth Ice, 2 people playing Mono Ice, 1 person playing Earth Wind, 1 person playing Mono Wind, and 1 person playing, this is Haragai, who is playing the Unai 6 CP Ice backup deck, which is very, very interesting. So you can see that almost everyone brought Water Wind, and then the most popular second choices for decks were brand new Opus 10 decks.
Which is, I think, is great. It just kind of sucks that it's prefaced with everyone played the safe choice of Windwater.
Yeah, I thought there would be a lot more Mono Ice, and maybe there was that didn't make the top. But you think that would be the people would target Windwater with some Mono Ice, but we only see one that qualified, and I don't know. Like Mono Ice got a lot of good stuff too. So did that surprise you as well?
It did. I think Earth Ice was like out Earth Ice Flan, so it's mostly just Mono Ice, just with the Earth splashed in. So that's the same deck that we've seen for the past couple opuses and being pretty dominant. But yeah, I thought Ice was gonna have a lot more of a showing, but goodness, it dropped off. It looks like Earth is making a good showing this Worlds though.
Yeah, but it's in the role that Earth is always in, which is
the supporting
role, and
the bridesmaid.
I want it to be the leading man. They need to. When I'm obviously talking about printing an Earth Balthier, come on, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Oh my god.
Okay. But Earth is a really good support color, and it has, honestly, just because of all the recursion that it has, and I think we saw a deck that was running 3 Kusiths, so you're getting that EX burst recursion, but what we're mainly seeing Earth used in this tournament is our World of Final Fantasy and our Rampier deck. So, having played against some World of Final Fantasy decks on Untapped in your testing, and then seeing them at Worlds, is there a huge difference between the lists that you're playing against and what you're seeing?
Not really, because there's so many World of Final Fantasy cards that were spread out throughout all the opuses that were kind of, oh, this card's garbage without more World of Final Fantasy support, and now all of a sudden it has that. So now those cards are obviously all great, and you end up with those 5 backups. It feels like basically what I feel like is the new Legend Rain that gets cheaper for every WoF character you have, and then every WoF character that swings deals 4K. That feels like Hero Vivi, where it's making this tribal playable, but not only does it do that, but it makes it dominant. Just that one card, that one legend in itself.
Yeah. So when you're playing online, how often or what CP cost on average does that rain drop for?
On average, it's probably dropping for 2, but people are playing it for free. They're getting the recursion back from it. They're playing it for free. And I can't remember, Hoyen, something like that. The 2 CP forward, I know, I sound like an idiot. There's a 2 CP forward that gets powered up and just gets so buffed with every World of Final Fantasy character you have. So it ends up being a 2 CP, 10k, with haste, brave, swings, deal 4k. It's nutty bananas.
Yeah, you can say that again. And I believe I was talking to my pal Travis, and he was saying that the H is actually silent. It's Aun or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you know what this kind of sounds like to me, David? Sounds like my dear friend Shadow Lord needs to come back into the meta, you know?
Honestly, maybe. If it's just going to take care of that, it might have to.
And just kills Han or Aun or whatever her name is.
Aun.
Yeah, just like you have that, and then you also have like queue up your removal for rain so that you can take it out as soon as possible, and then and just like hard counter a deck, and then maybe you're not so good against the other decks.
But this one deck, anti-meta is still meta, right?
Yeah. Well, I just wonder, like, there's this deck, and then we'll talk about the Rampier deck in a sec, but they have such huge value plays that I wonder if we're gonna have to counter them pretty hard at locals or not.
Well, I was talking to this guy on Tap that I just played actually this morning, and I got my Final Fantasy IX deck fully set up, and I was rolling. Everything was looking great. But the thing is with that deck is that it's so turbo aggro. And in the past, we've seen decks that are so turbo aggro and fast, but have to sacrifice, say, the stability of getting their 5 backups down, right? Whereas with this deck, you're going hard, you're going aggressive, but you're not sacrificing that. You're still getting those backups. One backup you're getting for free, you know? A 5-drop you're getting for free. A 5-drop legend you're getting for free. So, like, you're not sacrificing value for aggression.
No, and it's so it's gonna be pretty interesting what people do to counter that World of Final Fantasy deck. I actually think that Earth's in a pretty good spot in terms of things like Cecil are online super quickly against Aun, and or like Asmodai, and there's going to be decks that, like, they also have board clears like Shantoto, so I wonder if that will be actually a good matchup against World of Final Fantasy, or if World of Final Fantasy will just be too fast.
Well, Aun is brave, so it's going to be tough to dull it unless you're playing...
Right, she gets brave. Okay, no, that's totally fair. Okay,
that's a tough one.
Shadow Lord it is.
Shadow Lord it is.
No,
I feel like it kind of pushes... Sorry, I feel like it kind of pushes Wind Water more, and then, 5 CP Yuna, because then it ends up being the only way to deal with these cards and Rain, because, again, the recursion is to remove them from the game. So what's the easiest way? Yuna, Chaos Walker. Sid Brave Exvius, even, compared with Yuna.
Sorry.
When Rain comes down for free, right? So then 9k, just get her off the board.
So what other cards are people playing in this? Like, what other World of Final Fantasy forwards are you seeing in these decks?
Well, let me pull up the fun lists here. Um, that's basically the big combo right there is Own, which is the sound I make every time I see her hit the playmat. Uh, haha. um, other than that, there's one forward. Looking at it right now. Oh my goodness. Killing time. Serafi. Um, somebody, or I'm seeing a lot that somebody will just turn one Seraphi's, get back that forward that they pitched for it. So they're just playing a forward for free. So you're seeing a lot of that, Aun, the Freets and such. But the only sort of cards that you're not seeing in the WAF title or Gabranth, and every now and again you'll see like Nail or Cloud, maybe a Reagan tossed in for fun.
Yeah, I'm looking at a list right now, and it's got 3 Seraphis, which is crazy. I remember seeing when I played back in Opus like 1, 2, and 3, like you saw turn 1 Seraphi was like really common in Earth because you just didn't have that many cards, and
Right.
then you would never use it otherwise because generally um, that recursion for both players is something that you don't want to do. You don't want to give your opponent a good forward back. So this is kind of interesting just to see how many people brought it in the end, because I mean that would have required a lot of testing to make sure that it was actually going to be efficient against all these different decks that you'd line up against.
It's a World of Final Fantasy card, so I mean, they're gonna dig up everything, especially stuff that you can potentially get for free, which seems to be the theme of this deck is getting stuff for cheap and or free. Why not, right?
Yeah, and
I
it's
Funny note, I just realized that Jamie Faulkner and Jason Z are playing the exact same two decks.
oh really? Yeah, so they might
I'm
have they might have
I'm
worked
just
together
flipping
in
back
that.
and forth between the two. Yeah, I would assume.
So I'm also looking at a few other decks, and it's interesting that some people are choosing to use the new Opus 10 lawn to run with the monsters, and then other people are running the Opus 1 lawn that we got the promo of that can't be blocked by someone with greater power than himself. And I guess that's actually pretty good with haste and ping and everything. That's not a bad way to go.
I don't know. I really like that old lawn. I really like the Opus 8 lawn. But yeah, I'm surprised that they're not running the more people aren't running the Opus 10 because I mean, it's a 2-drop, 7k first strike. Powers up your WAF monsters. I feel like that one might have a little bit more synergy, but
Yeah. Well, like if we look at this, this is Yamada's list, and he's got the three
let's take a
CP
look.
lawn. He's also got 2 Heinz, the new Legend, Dark Legend, but he's got Brendelis, and he's even got stuff like Sieghard. And I've seen a few lists with Heretical Knight Garlands, and I wonder if that's purely to break 5 CP units, if they're afraid of that. Or actually, you know what? That might just be to break some other things like Doga or even Unes too.
Well, especially with those backups having getting a lot of testing right now, at least on Untapped, and it's obviously we're seeing a bit of Une at Worlds and Una a lot of Worlds. Yeah, that would make a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, I actually really like that tech choice because I've always liked that card, but it's just been, you know, when it came out, we didn't see a lot of 5 CP Una, so it just hasn't seen a lot of play. But it's kind of neat. It's a nice attacker afterwards, for sure.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can't complain with an AK Brave.
awesome. So let's talk about a Rampier deck. So I'll give you a second to pull up a list from someone. Uh,
Sure.
but we're seeing all sorts of Rampier decks. But the key thing here is that the Rampier, it's a 2 CP backup we just got. When it goes to the break zone, it will bring category 11 forward from your hand to the field, and the 2 main targets for that are the 9 CP starter Shantoto and the 9 CP Prish. So we have people running both. We have people running just the Shantoto. It can also bring things in like Camelot if you have it. But because of the nature of it being an Earth and Lightning deck, and there's multiple Muggles to use, and there's a dark cam package with Chaos, we're also seeing people splash in other colors. So there's a lot of flexibility to build around that core combo, which makes it a really fun deck to watch.
Yeah, I just pulled up Christopher Matiski's deck, and I think that's probably my favorite Rampier deck out of the ones being played. And I hate using this word. His spicy tech in it is he has one water card and it's backup Minwu. pull that in with Shantoto, and that might shut down your WAF.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. He has that, and then what was there was one other off-color card I think that he has in there.
Um, Nail.
Nail, yeah, to get some firepower and some late game possible shenanigans to win, which is
I
pretty
hate that
neat.
word too.
Yeah, the shenanigans.
I hate that word.
Let's see.
It,
We'll use that word sparingly then. How about that?
oh please.
Okay, so I'm taking a look at Robert Phillips' list here, and it's pretty interesting because you have things to break your Rapier. You have the Opus 9 Vincent that breaks a backup to deal something 9k. You've got the new Opus 10 Garland to break a backup on entry. We've also got the new Cloud of Darkness, 3 of, which is really interesting. The new Hein, Fail Thanos, but obviously these decks, they're all running 3 Kane because Kane is the best way to break that back up and get a nice forward out. So we see a lot of that. But these decks are also running lots of monsters because we have new things to search monsters like Nag Molada, and even things like the backup lock that can name monster and definitely get you a monster. So I think that's pretty a pretty interesting list. It's got the new Kana Kamui, the 3 CP lightning monster that reduces power. I think that card is awesome, and I was really excited to see that it's being played at Worlds. But yeah, are you looking at any other lists right now?
I'm flipping back and forth and kind of comparing and contrasting the Matisky and Robert Phillips list. I think with the monsters is that monsters are slightly, and I think Kanaka Moy is a perfect example of that. Monsters are becoming more powerful, and nobody has yet to really run a lot of monster removal because they haven't really needed to, right? So now that stuff like Kanaka Moy, that's a bit more relevant. So that's interesting that he's putting that in there.
Yeah, with a lot of these monsters, it doesn't matter if you break them, but with Kana Kamui, if you do have the ability to break it, you can really force their hand because they might not necessarily want to use it the turn they played it, and it could force like an awkward use of the card. But a lot of the monsters right now are like Luminous Puma. It's immune to monster removal because it will just break anyway. So but it'll be interesting to see with some of these other monsters coming in, like Scale Toad and stuff, if we do see some more monster removal being tacked in by various decks.
Yeah, for sure. Will that become the new meta?
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at one more interesting deck, which is Taiki Haragai's Une deck. So this is a deck that has some Earthwind stuff, but it also has Citra for summon recursion and runs a Cosmos for color fixing, and because of that it's able to run a lot of different summons. So it's running stuff like 3 Mist Dragons, which is also a very interesting card that could help out in this removal meta, although it doesn't stop things like Rampier but it can stop late game recursion of those things, which is good. This deck is also running 3 of the backup breaking Hecaton Cures. It's running Diabolos, and sorry, this list is totally out of order, so it's hard to put it all together. It's actually running the Opus X Diablos as well, which is pretty nice because it's a 3 CP summon, but then it also draws you a card, so it helps get that Une online. Or though, is Une any summon at all?
Une is any summon at all.
Right,
yeah.
it's Doga that has to be a summon of cost 3 or higher. So
Yeah.
the deck is basically like a way to play a lot of summons and then recur those summons and play them again, and you're going to be using Une to replay some really big targets, because Une makes a forward remove from the game and then play back onto the field. So there's things like Sephiroth, we have things like the Lightning Fusoya, Ultimisia, the starter one, we also have things like Fina, and I think, and then Yasmat as well. So it doesn't have too many forwards. And then Citra, obviously, if you can continuously flicker Citra, then you're going to keep getting summons back to do it over and over if you need, and then like kind of play out your big guys and try to mess up your opponent.
And you see what Y'shtola he's playing, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, the backup protecting one.
Backup protecting one. Protect that Une.
Yeah, so that's huge. So that Y'shtola cancels an effect targeting your backups, and then you draw a card, and it goes to the break zone. So effectively, if they have removal for your Une, they have to do it twice. So what I'm really interested about this deck is, I mean, it seems like it's probably going to be incredibly difficult to pilot, but this is obviously one of the best players in the entire world, if not like the best player in the entire world. So obviously he's got no problem with it. But I just have such a hard time imagining how you can make up that huge CP investment in Une in the short term before it can become profitable. Like there's against certain decks, aren't you just going to get overpowered in the meantime? Or
well, when I watched his match when he played this deck, and honestly, it looked like he was just playing solitaire with himself, and it kind of looked like he was just flexing. Like there was sometimes he would use the Une combo or the Citra combo, and it's like you really didn't need to do that. You're just flexing right now. You're showing off how complex this deck is, but how you have a mastery of it. He ended up winning that game, but it was crazy. Like if you are a Magic player coming to FFTCG and you watch this deck being played, it's something that'll interest you.
Okay, that's perfect. So I should make a video about that and say like, this deck will excite Magic players, and then like just clickbait, get everybody in, and then convert some new players.
And that's how you get the quick clicks.
Okay, one more. Let's take a look at Mono Ice. This is Kyle Peters' list, and it's pretty standard for Mono Ice, except it does have some Opus 10 inclusions. So the new Legend Squall is an obvious inclusion. The new Skyla, which is good removal, especially on if you're expecting like Fail Thanos, but it's also just good removal on a lot of different targets. We've got the new Black Mage backup to recur some summons, and this is what I kind of wanted to get to, which is the new Sephiroth hero, which we're seeing in Earth Ice and we're seeing in Mono Ice, and it's just like a really neat card, but then it's a Shadow Flare fodder, and that's where we're seeing it a lot of the time.
You would think that, but there it is. Sorry, I was looking through the list. It's just out of order enough that the 7 CP Sephiroth is with the backups. Yeah, the fact that Opus 10 Sephiroth has its own special as well, the two go perfectly in hand, right? Like yeah. I don't think the Opus 10 Sephiroth would see any play if it didn't have, maybe not any play, but it would receive much less play than the one of in the ice decks than if it didn't have a special.
Yeah, I agree with that. But even just having it as that back attack block and it could die, and then it's off the field for you to play another Sephiroth anyway. But I think we saw a match. I was tuning in and out as I had time yesterday, and I think there was a match where Kyle Peters like Shadow Flared someone a bunch of times.
Yeah, I remember that. Went pretty hard with that. I think this was at the point where it was like 4 a.m. and I was tuning out. I was starting to fall asleep.
Fair enough. So this Mono Ice list, besides those Opus 10 inclusions, it has the new Terra as well. It looks pretty standard. He's decided to go with Zelira the Death Seraph, but also has, of course, the Opus 9 Zelira and Glaciella Bolas. The backup line is pretty. Oh, and also the Opus 8 Shiva, which is a really fun card. That's the one that dull freezes 3 things on your opponent's side, but you have to do it on your turn. And then otherwise the deck is pretty standard Mono Ice. I'm really shocked that we didn't see more people attempting something like this.
I think with Mono Ice it's kind of like in the way of Wind Water, where it's consistently been a contender. It's consistently been winning, and because there's been limited test time with Opus 10, I'm not sure that people are ready to take a gamble with that, with their 2 decks.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's talk about our. We made some choices on our most impactful cards of Opus 10, and sure, the meta is actually very young. This is something that I want to mention is that this is a 2-deck format. So you see all these World of Final Fantasy decks and these Rampier decks. Now, let's get every single one of those players to say, now you can only bring one deck, and see which one they bring. Is it going to be Water Wind, or is it going to be their World of Final Fantasy deck? So when you have a 2-deck format, you are going to see more decks. You are going to see more interesting choices in new decks, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the meta, because we could have a big tournament. For example, there's going to be the Winter Cup in Wales, and there's going to be Reunion in January in the United States, and we might see just a ton of Water Wind overall and not as much of the other types of decks. So this isn't like a really good indicator of the meta, but it is a good place to start to look at kind of what we're seeing out there.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you did ask them what deck will you bring, they're going to go with the Wind Water, or the consistent proven winner. I think with the limited testing, they went hard testing that one deck that they have, their deck B. So whether it be WAF or Ranpier or the one Une deck, that was the one deck they tested, right? So they didn't really have time to test out, say, I don't know, Earth, Wind, some or other. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Now, do you have your top 5 list with you?
That I had from last week?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember it.
Okay, because I know you're number 1, so I'm going to go through my top 5 real quick, and we'll kind of...
Yeah.
Okay, so number 5, I had Fail Thanos, and he was a one of in some decks, so I think that's kind of what I expected. Number 4, I had Ash, and we did see a lot of Ash in some decks, and some of the Water Winds were playing Ash. Some of them played a 3 of, which was pretty cool. But I don't think we saw as much water as I was expecting in terms of, like, not Water Wind. I thought maybe there'd be some mono water, but I don't know that there was any. Did you see any?
Sorry, I'm trying to pull up my thing one more time.
Did you see any mono water at the event, or?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So then my number 3 was I cheated. It was Reagan and Citra, and that one's that was your number 1. I think that you were spot on there.
Yeah.
But we saw a boatload of Reagans and Citras all over in a ton of decks, because they're just auto includes. Like, the utility is just so good. It's kind of silly, and they have second abilities that they could have printed those cards without those second abilities, and you'd still have seen the exact same numbers in all the decks, because they just already do what they're supposed to do. My number 2 was Gilgamesh, and I don't think that he's seen any play in this tournament, so that was kind of a miss, although he's a good card. And my number 1 was Squall. Again, seen play in this tournament, lots of 1-ofs, lots of 2-ofs. When you're splashing ice, he's just good, but he's not like this focal point in any deck, so he's probably not a true number 1.
No, but we're at least more on the mark where at least some of our cards are seeing fringe play, but they're not meta defining.
Yeah, so, and you know what, I actually have, because I was doing this in a Word document, and I highlighted all the cards I didn't pick for my top 5, and I actually have Rampier highlighted because it was just didn't make the cut. I should have put that in. And then Hein I also didn't put in, and has seen a decent amount of play as well. So I think that Hein or Rampier could have switched in for probably Fail Thanos and also Gilgamesh. What about your top 5?
All right. Well, I can only remember 4 right now. If you remember, please let me know. So my number 5 was Caius, which I didn't see a lot of play with. What's his name? Parrot. Ben Parrot. He was playing a Wind, Water, Fire list, and I'm confident it had Caius in that list, but he didn't do so hot with that. I'm seeing in this stream right now a couple in the draft he's getting played, but as for actually constructed, not seeing a heck of a lot of him right now. And yeah, you hit Squall on the head for my number 4, 3, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's seeing fringe play, like enough that it's making an impact, but not enough that it's defining ice decks as we see them now. What But my top two, Cloud of Darkness and Reagan, we're seeing Reagan in a lot of decks, and we're seeing Cloud of Darkness in Ice decks, and we're seeing seeing her in Rampierre decks to break that too. So not the way that I thought I was going to see her play, but hey, she's seeing some play.
Yeah. So overall, I think that a lot of people there was this sentiment online that this set was weaker than other sets, and there was people that were saying, "Oh, it's not going to impact the meta that much," and people definitely changed their opinion on that. But I think like this is one of the more impactful sets. We've got two brand new decks. We've got Opus 10 cards being run in numbers in all of the decks that we've seen, and I think that overall Opus 10's been just more impactful than people imagined.
Yeah, I'm short of saying that it's a power set, but it's definitely a more impactful set than. Honestly, I'm going to throw Opus 9 under the bus. I think it's more impactful than Opus 9. It's honestly maybe even more impactful than Opus 8. So I think it's one of the more impactful decks that we've seen, and especially because we've seen cards that have been collecting dust on the shelf getting brought out, like WAF cards just no one's ever heard of are just getting brought out for now one of the most dominant decks in the world at the moment.
Yeah, and also I guess it's no Opus 5 is what we're saying, because that's the kind of your power set that you judge by.
Yeah, exactly.
But even stuff like 9 CP Prish, and I think there was even a 6 CP Shantota somewhere. I swear I saw that.
I swear I saw that.
But yeah, no, so it's very exciting, and I think that's something that I just love seeing when a set releases, is that people are actually playing with these cards and that it's going well. Okay, so you know what, if unless you have anything else you want to mention about Worlds or anything at all, I think we're going to sign off.
I promise we'll get to locals this week and we'll have some stuff to talk about then.
Yes, yeah. So I have I do have a wrestling tournament on Thursday, but I'm going to prepare even if I have to leave from there, that I'll go to Worlds. I'm going to
go to Worlds?
Yeah, I'll go to locals.
I'll make it if I can.
Because it's devastating not going to locals. Like the 2 weeks after a set comes out, that's the best time to go, and I'm totally missing out on it. So it's a high priority for me to go this week.
Let's get there.
Okay.
On tap is fine and all, but we need to get to locals.
Yeah, we need to play with some pieces of cardboard,
people.
And people, real people. Okay, awesome. Well, I just want to thank you all for listening this week. So don't forget to use that promo code PORIMPALUM10 at Cards of Evilise to get your discount on your order. And you can read my articles at themysidiapost.com and check me out on YouTube, and throw me a like on Facebook and a sub on YouTube to show your support. And then let's also thank FFTCG for all of their hard work.
All their hard works.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for listening, Mysidians, and we'll see you next time. Hey, David, say goodbye.
Oh, God. All right. Bye, Lunarians.
Yes, I love that's the thing. Okay, we'll see you next time, guys. See ya.